one of the important parts about doing this initiative is sustaining funding throughout the years. And it's very challenging as a scientist to try to find the different point sources to get the resources, both in personnel and financing, to make all these different projects happen. One of the ways is working with really passionate foundations that find mission critical about how we support firefighters with cancer research. So our next session brings on a very special scientist and foundation director, Dr. Susanna Greer. She serves as the Chief Scientific Officer of the V Foundation, where she works with a scientific advisory committee to direct funding towards promising cancer research and developing strategic priorities. Before she did this, she was the senior scientific director at the American Cancer Society, where she has led cancer research programs, cultivated partnerships, and enhanced science communications. Dr. Greer has also made a significant contributions as a tenured professor at Georgia State University, where her team advanced molecular immunology and epigenetic cancer research. And she continues to serve in a leadership role within the American Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology and the National Cancer Institute. Please join me in welcoming our Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Susanna Greer.
All right, I think I stand between you and break and lunch. So, a little bit of pressure and a whole lot of pressure to follow amazing talks this morning. I have a few things that I want to make sure you hear first. First is to say thank you for the invitation to be here. I am incredibly honored. The second is to say congratulations on a 10-year celebration of this incredible initiative. And the third is to say I am a chief, but I'm not a chief like many of you in this room. So thank you for all of you in the firefighter service. I am honored to be in your presence and am gratefully appreciative of the work that you do on behalf of all of us. So there are several things that I hope you hear from me today. The first is I want to introduce you to the V Foundation. If you've not heard of us, we were founded 31 years ago by ESPN and the legendary basketball coach, Jim Valvano. And I want to introduce you to us and what we do. The second is I want to show you how we do it. You're going to hear some big numbers today. And I want to share with you how we do what we do, why we do it. This job is the honor of my lifetime, just like what you do is the honor of what you do in your lifetimes. And then I want to bring it home to how what we do impacts firefighters and how I think you will be excited about our mission and how you can join us. And then, of course, excited to take your questions. So with that, let's dive in. So one thing I wanted to share with you, and this is probably one of the most important things I'll say today, is that no matter how cancer has impacted you, the folks you love, the communities you serve, the V Foundation is there. We fund across all cancers, and I think that's a really important part of what we do. We also fund across all patient journeys. Chief, who sat here just a moment ago, said that we hope that we can be in a world someday where we can prevent cancers in all firefighters. And that's where I hope in a few years I'll be invited back and we'll be in that space. But we fund across the entire patient journey, all the way from prevention of all cancers to the space of early detection. We fund an enormous amount in treatment, we fund in survivorship, and we fund all the way to palliative care. On the other side of that slide, you'll see that we also fund across the scientific journey. We've heard some great presentations from my scientific colleagues, and you've heard a little bit about that scientific journey. I'm a basic scientist myself. I'm an immunologist. Actually, if you go way back, I'm trained as a physical chemist, but cancer immunotherapy is my area of expertise. So when we think about the scientific journey, we're thinking about cancer discovery. So what happens to those genes and proteins that messes them up? when we have exposures. So we fund in developmental science, we translate that work and fund it when we're moving that work to the lab, and then we fund in the clinical trial space at the V Foundation. So one thing I'd like for you to remember today is that no matter where cancer has impacted you, the folks you love, the folks that you serve with, the V Foundation is there. All right, so you're going to hear some big numbers today about how the V Foundation is impacting the work that firefighters do. And I think one of the messages I'd like to share with you is that the V Foundation thinks about cancer in a space of how can we take the challenges that the cancer community faces and approach it in a way that we are making sure we fund the best research or the best, in a way that we can strike outside of our, higher than our belt. We're a small organization. We were funded just 31 years ago. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we have a 100% giving pledge. So if you give $1 to the V Foundation, or if you give $1 million or $10 million, if you direct that donation to research, it's going to go there. So remember I said we fund across all cancers, we fund across all patient journeys, and we fund across the scientific space. I'm an immunologist, so if I were making the decisions on what to fund, we might fund all in cancer immunotherapy. Well, that's not where we need to be. So the way that we fund research is that we have what we call request for applications. And I want to be able to stand in front of you as either a donor or a partner or an organization like Sylvester Cancer Center, which we'll hear back about in a few minutes of what we're funding here, and to say we are funding the best research, quite frankly, in the world in that space, where you're interested, where that dollar is going. So how do we do that? So we have what we call requests for applications. So it's multiple times a year, the V Foundation sends out requests for applications to the best research institutes in the United States. We send them out to 72 designated cancer centers and other cancer centers in North America. We also fund in Canada. And we say, hey, send us your best. And those cancer center directors have internal competitions to say the V Foundation is funding research. And so the best researchers at those cancer centers then apply internally just for the opportunity to submit a grant in what they're doing, to submit a research proposal. So then we have those applications come to us, and so we end up with about 79 applications multiple times a year. Those applications are then reviewed by the best researchers, quite frankly, in the world. Our scientific advisory committee is composed of leading oncologists, so these are leading clinicians and researchers at comprehensive cancer centers in the United States. Each of our grant applications is reviewed by not one, not two, not three, but 4 members of our scientific advisory committee. They rank them from best to worst. Now remember, these were the applicants coming from the best research centers in the world. So the worst one, it's not crappy, right? It's amazing. So they have to make really hard decisions. And then they get together and they fight it out. Not like a cage fight or anything, but like, it's a grant review. It's this incredibly competitive process. We do this multiple times a year. So the research that we fund across all cancers, across all patient journeys, and across that scientific space is outstanding. And we do that multiple times a year. So now I want to tell you what we're doing in the space that we're gathered today. But what I wanted you to do is to understand that what we do is we fund the best. So that if you decide to partner with us, you can understand that what we are funding is the best research, quite frankly, in the world. Because I'm about to show you some big numbers, and I wanted you to understand how we do it. Okay, so how are we impacting cancer and firefighters through this process? So what are we doing to think about cancers that impact firefighters? So we know through this incredible 2-day experience that we've had that firefighters are of course, that face through their environmental exposures, an increased risk to develop multiple cancers. And I'm really only going to highlight a few of them today. But they are much more likely to develop cancer than other members of the population. And so I'm going to talk to you today about a few cancers and what we are doing in that space, all the way from prevention to palliative care. So we know that exposure to benzene, to asbestos, to formaldehyde, and to aromatic hydrocarbons, it increases the risk to lung cancer. So what is the V Foundation doing in this space? And I think, actually, before I show you this data, I want to tell you one thing, and that is that as firefighters, I don't think about you all the time. I live in Atlanta. The V Foundation is based in North Carolina because that's where Jim Valvano was, this legendary coach of NC State. But I live in Atlanta because I travel all over the space, all over the country for my job. We have amazing volunteer and career firefighters in Atlanta. I don't think about you all the time, but oh my goodness, you're protecting me all the time. Thank you for that. I don't think you think about research that's happening all the time to protect you. And that's what I'm about to show you, is the research that's going on all the time for firefighters. So I think that's the space I want to kind of set the stage for what is happening and in the research that is driven by the V Foundation and our partners. So what have we done in lung cancer? So in lung cancer, we've actually funded 97 grants that have totaled almost $30 million. But because of the way we fund research, we fund the best of the best. Our researchers have gone on to receive an additional 553 grants that have totaled $7.9 billion in follow-on funding. That means our researchers have received an additional grants to receive additional almost $8 billion with the B dollars in funding in lung cancer specifically, and they have credited the V Foundation for their ability to receive these additional grants. Now, what do they do with those grants? That's important. So they've produced over 9,000 publications, and importantly, they're working on 144 clinical trials. Now that is really important. What are we doing in bladder cancer? So we know that bladder cancer has been linked to exposure to benzene and other industrial chemicals. Well, in bladder cancer, we funded specifically 12 grants in our 31 years for over $5.7 million. Our researchers have gone on to receive an additional 71 grants, totaling over $400 million. They've produced 1,300 publications, and this, of course, allows other researchers to go on and study bladder cancer, and they've worked on 18 clinical trials. And then in melanoma, we funded 44 grants, and those grants have led to additional 322 grants, $5.5 billion in funding, 3,700 publications, and 30 clinical trials. All right, we're going to do a little bit deeper dive into blood cancers, which we've talked about in this symposium. I want to talk about what we're doing specifically here at Sylvester. And so over the period that the V Foundation has been founded, we funded 167 grants and invested $52 million in adult blood cancers. So blood cancers are a significant challenge for firefighters. Here at Sylvester specifically, we have invested in 3 grants in lymphoma. Lymphoma is a real challenge. It's a challenge for firefighters, and I want to specifically talk about what we've done at Sylvester. This is a grant that we're currently funding to Dr. Spiegel. I should say I'm biased because I'm an immunologist, but I really love this grant. This is an amazing grant because lymphoma is a huge challenge. One of the reasons that lymphoma is a challenge is that because it has a high rate of remission, despite the high remission rate of 40%, only about 40% of patients achieve remission because of the high tumor burden. It's a blood cancer, so even when we have a really great remission rate, it's really hard to find every single cancer cell because lymphoma is really, really good at avoiding the immune system. This is a really cool grant because it uses an immunotherapy called CAR T cells. If you've probably heard about CAR T. I don't have time to talk to you. I mean, I used to teach immunology. This would take about a year to teach you an immunology course. If you want to hang out in the lobby, we can talk about it. I could probably get you super excited about the immune system. But one of the challenges of immunotherapy is it doesn't work for everybody. And Dr. Spiegel's grant is really cool because instead of taking just one immunotherapy, it uses two. Immune cells have proteins on the surface, and so do tumors. And typically, when we are targeting lymphoma, we're just targeting one called CD19, and this grant uses two. This is an amazing grant. At the V Foundation, we're not interested in funding grants that the federal government funds. Those are grants that you typically have to have 90% of the data to get the grant. We want to fund folks who, remember, they've already gotten jobs at places like Sylvester. These are the best cancer research institutions in the world. They've already proven themselves 6 times over. We want to fund high-risk, high-reward science, and that's what this is. So this grant is specifically targeted at resistant lymphoma. I love this grant. Another grant that we're funding here is a grant that is targeting something called STAT3 mutations. So what's STAT3? I know that doesn't mean a ton if you're not a scientist. So one thing I can tell you is something super naughty that cancer cells do is they mutate our genes. And STAT3 is something called a transcription factor. And basically, it's a protein that sits down on different places in genes. And for whatever reason in lymphoma, this particular protein is mutated all the time. All the time, and we know that. Tons and tons of scientists have proven that, but we cannot keep up with that data. And what this grant from Dr. Villanaro has shown is that we have not studied all of these mutations. And have you heard about precision medicine? Right? So what precision medicine does is to find which one of these mutations is druggable, because that's what really matters, is finding the drug that can target the mutation on DNA that we can do something about. So his approach is going to allow us to scale this platform that we can share it with lots of other people. Do you remember a few slides ago when I showed you those thousands of publications? That's what it's all about. When you get a grant from the V Foundation, we require you to share your data. That's part of getting one of our grants. You can get the money, that's fine, but then you publish it, it's actually required to share your data. So I really love this because it's going to help us develop guided or precision treatments. The last grant I want to share is, this is a different one. Remember I said the V Foundation, we fund all the way from prevention to palliative care. This grant is a grant in the space of nutrition and exercise. So if you are in the firefighter service and you have lymphoma, what can we do to help you, to support you? So we know that chemotherapy for lymphoma causes significant physical and emotional side effects, but we don't know how we could help combine better nutrition and exercise to support patients during treatment. And so Dr. Crane's study is fantastic because it's going to help us understand from patients what we might do to help them to better follow a nutrition and exercise plan, and to examine different interventions that would also help with mental health, which we heard a ton about during this conference, and improve quality of life. And there's actually a video I wanted to play in just a second, because I want to show, I've given you a taste of what the V Foundation does, both globally. I've also started to introduce you to Sylvester, and I wanted to show you a little bit about, you're probably asking questions about how in the world is an organization that was founded 31 years ago able to do so much amazing work? Well, one of the reasons is the video I'm about to show you. So if my friends on the AV desk could help me show a video really quickly, that would be great.
Cancer doesn't affect everyone equally. It's a harsh reality that disproportionately impacts certain communities. But hope is on the horizon. A groundbreaking partnership between 3 game changers in the cancer research space is determined to change this. Announced on a national stage by legend Serena Williams at the 2024 ESPYs, the Dolphins Cancer Challenge, University of Miami Sylvester Comprehensive Cancer Center, and the V Foundation for Cancer Research have committed to raising $30 million for innovative cancer research over the next decade to combat cancer disparities and save lives.
This is huge. Our commitment to cancer research, our commitment to helping save more lives from the threat of cancer, it's starting here. We're focusing on health disparities, and this is over 10 years, because our commitment isn't just for today, our commitment is for our future. Cancer isn't something we face alone. Cancer is something that we impact, we embrace, and we can improve upon for our future for all of us.
It's the largest partnership in the history of the V Foundation. The collective $30 million investment over 10 years combines the influence of DCC with the expertise of Sylvester, the only National Cancer Institute designated cancer center in South Florida, and the V Foundation's national awareness and impact to create a powerful force for change.
There are many times the worst conversation I have is, we don't have any more options, or I'm sorry, we've done everything we can. The Dolphins Challenge Cancer Initiative is that we're raising money to change that I don't have to have that conversation. My colleagues don't have to have those conversations, that we can save more lives.
Imagine a future where everyone, regardless of race, ethnicity, or socioeconomic status, has equal access to life-saving cancer care. Let's make that future of victory over cancer for all a reality.
One team, one fight.
So I'll be there tomorrow. Hopefully I won't need any of you firefighters. I'll be riding along with a couple of my colleagues. I'll probably be in the back. I may be the last rider in that 39-mile bike race. But if you see me on the side of the road, maybe scoop me up. But super excited about the ride. And incredibly grateful to the DCC and Sylvester for this wonderful opportunity to collaborate. So what are the goals of this collaboration? Well, the goals are to do more of that incredible research that you just saw. Very specifically, the goal of this collaboration is to fight cancer disparities. Disparities, what does that mean? Well, it means that 2 things. Number 1, it shouldn't matter where you live or what you look like. Your opportunities to survive cancer should be the same. It also means that if you want to participate in cancer research, you should have equal opportunity, and right now that's not true. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a statistic I'm very proud of, and that is that nearly 13% of researchers at the V Foundation are given to underrepresented researchers. It's something I'm really proud of. That's compared to the National Institutes of Health, where that statistic is just under 3%. If we want to solve cancer, that table needs to look like the American population. We need to bring all great ideas to the table. On the right-hand side, you'll see more about our commitment that we've made with Sylvester and the DCC, which is something we're incredibly excited about. And that is to bring innovative research to combat cancer disparities and save lives. And to really drive home this message that cancer disparities must not exist, and through this initiative, we'll bring an end to them. So I know there are researchers in the room who might be wondering how you might find out more about the V Foundation and how you might benefit from some of this incredible partnerships and fundraising. So you can go to our website, and you can also find me. I'll be on the last slide, have a little bit more to share. We have some really amazing FAQs. Now, why are we gathered here? Well, we're gathered here for this incredible group of individuals who've dedicated their lives to save us. We have a wonderful fund called the Turnout for Firefighters Fund. It was started by Rex and Krista Hughes and the teams at Emergency Technical Decon and Emergent who've teamed up with us to create a fund that allows us to drive money specifically to research for the cancers that I have identified and others that impact firefighters. And all donations, just like for any donations that go to cancer research at the V Foundation, 100% of donations go to life-saving research for firefighters. This job, as I said, is the honor of my lifetime. I work for a wonderful organization, and I could not be more excited to do the work that we do on behalf of all of us, and with this fund, especially for all of you. So thank you for the work that you do. We would be delighted for you to visit v.org/firefighters. Many of my colleagues who've been on this stage before have asked that you share your stories. We can't do this work without understanding your challenges. That is how we are able to have requests for applications to understand the challenges in your field, to bring together great scientists and to solve the problems that you're facing. And also for all of us, please visit our website to understand how you can reduce your risk. And with that, my website, my personal email address is on the bottom, and I would encourage you to reach out to me. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here.
I'd like to open it up to any questions from the floor for Dr. Greer, but first, I'd like to invite our planning team to come up on stage and start helping us set up for our next session. Dr. Greer, your message is incredibly important to us, not just as researchers, but also firefighters. In the session just before, we had our Torches Fellows, which are firefighters trying to engage in research as well. So I would welcome any questions for Dr. Greer from the audience about working with the V Foundation or applying for research. From the audience here or from any of our folks watching online. No questions on funding. That's the first time that I've had that experience.
Usually I get lots of questions on funding, but I think this is an audience of firefighters. I hope you understood how grateful we are and how hard we're working on your behalf. So thank you. It was a real honor to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yes, sorry.